All right, welcome in, Gun Talk Hunters. This week, we've got Brandon Maddox of Silencer Central. He is the man over there. We're going to find out, how do you travel with suppressors? What are the rules? And also, we're displaying the new Banish Backcountry, so tune in on YouTube, Facebook if you want to see it. This Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by Franke, Benelli Super Black Eagle, and the Benelli Lupo. All right, welcome in, Gun Talk Hunters. I'm your host, KJ, and we are smack dab in the middle of hunting seasons right now. And hopefully you're listening to this on your way to the stand or on your way back from a successful hunt. Today, we've got Brandon Maddox in from Silencer Central, the man of Silencer Central. Brandon, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Well, I mean, I guess we go ahead and we talk about what's out in front of us. I think we initially maybe, I don't know how to do this. I'm looking over to our producer thinking maybe we should do some, what's the state of eForms? Let's start there. Let's get that out of the way. And then we're going to jump into new products and field use of the Banish Backcountry. Every time I look at your Facebook page, you are carrying a wad of eForms that have been confirmed. What's the status?
Good question. So technically, those are the paper forms.
Okay. Whoa.
So we met with ATF a couple months ago up at headquarters, and of course, our question was, they got really backlogged with the paper forms. Their goal obviously was to flush all the paper forms out before they transitioned to the eForm process, but they didn't. So they've been sitting on paper forms and also eForms. So the problem is it's sort of splitting efforts. So neither one of them have been great as far as approval times. Paper longer just because it takes longer for them to do it. Digital just because they were focused on paper. So the feedback they gave us is that their goal is to flush out all paper forms that were submitted prior to eForms going live. Their goal is to flush all those out by November. So, we're already into November, but if you look at like the trend we have internally, we're expecting that by the end of December, any form that has bid at ATF that was submitted prior to eForms going live should be approved. We feel like they're going to make that trend. So then that's when it gets exciting, right? So right now they're doing all, 65, 70 people are working the paper forms. They've communicated to us, the ATF, that it takes them about 25% of the amount of time to do a digital as it does a paper.
Okay.
So right now the digital are really, we've got, I shouldn't say, I had a guy that had a digital approved in 3 days, but that's rare.
Oh,
yeah. Right now we're getting back, they're probably, 9 months old right now, the digital ones that we're getting approved, and we just get a small amount because you can tell they're working the paper. But once they fix the paper, then I'm convinced that digital is going to be significantly quicker because that's all they have to work on, and we know they can work those quicker.
well, and that's one thing that we had talked about before is just how fast the digital is going to go, and I think, and I can actually attest to it that I got an approval in, I think it was right around 47 days. So that's still a heck of a lot better than what the paper trail was.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, they're making progress. They've got the right system in place. I mean, we give them a little pushback, like, hey, you kind of quoted us 90 days. We got a little bit of egg in our face by mentioning that to people when they bought, and they're like, well, in 2021 we had about 375,000 applications. This year they're expecting about 800,000. So when applications double, I guess their pushback is you got to accept that the timelines are going to double. But honestly, I do think now that the paper is starting to get flushed out, and those are just, problem is if there's an error in those, they have to send them back to the dealer has to make the change with the customer and has to come back. So sometimes they're touching them twice. Digital, if there's some vetting when you enter a digital, but if there's a discrepancy on digital, they just deny it. So there's no paperwork, which, we have a low percentage, maybe 2% that get denied. And it's little things like maybe the customer tells us they're, 6'3", and then we get their, fingerprint cards and it says they're 6'8", or, the things don't match. So things like that, they'll reject it if the customer gives us two different answers for the same question. So little things like that. So we're trying to put more logic into our processes to make sure that if there are situations where data doesn't match, that we catch in the beginning
Right.
too.
Wow, that's I never thought of that. That if you grow an inch or two, you better make note of it everywhere.
Well, say like we encourage people, hey, do your fingerprints at home. We'll send you the cards. But let's say you go to the sheriff's office, they put down your something like some discrepancy you'll see is ethnicity, or I'm white, and then they put down black, or just something
Right.
gets to. And we should catch that. I mean, our goal is to catch that, but we're trying to put better steps in place because ATF doesn't always catch it till the end, and then it gets rejected, and then you have to start over. So,
Right.
but no,
One
we're having good luck with eForms. They're going through. We get hundreds a day, so that's exciting. It emails the customer at the same time, so there's full transparency. We keep everything on file, so if the customer wants another one, we're good to go. So yeah, we're happy with eForms. We just got to get the paper forms done, and it's unfortunate it's taken a year to get there, but now I think it's nothing but clear skies. Hopefully, moving forward.
Well, if your Facebook posts are any indication of how quickly they're mowing through them, I mean, it's almost daily that you're posting a picture with a stack of papers this
Oh
tall.
yeah,
So
yeah. What's interesting is ATF has to send each of them individually in their own envelope because they get penalized for a privacy violation if they send it to the wrong address or wrong person opens it. So that's why they used to pack them all together, but they must have changed their
yeah,
processes. So yeah, you get one envelope per approval.
how is it working alongside the ATF through this? I mean, have they been pretty helpful? It seems like you guys have a really good relationship as far as like working through the kinks that you may have.
Totally. ATF, obviously we're the biggest dealer submitting just because Silencer Central has locations in 42 states. So we're submitting so much paperwork to them. We have, a great relationship. A lot of the people that are in charge of the NFA branch have been there, 15, 20 years. And that's kind of how long I've been in the industry. So I have a good enough relationship that they could email me and say, hey, can we
Yeah,
set up a conference call and talk through some stuff? And sometimes it's them not understanding how we did it, or sometimes it's, they might ask us to change our process because you can put reference numbers on them, and we use that to digitize and create automation when it comes in approved to take care of it. So no, we have a good working relationship. I know I've gotten some slack on Facebook for, why are you celebrating what took a year and a half to get? We just try to celebrate the wins, and we have no control over it taking, that long to get those paper ones that have been out there a while. But I do find that I typically, those pictures you see on Facebook, I do email them to the NFA branch, and I know that the employees see it there and they appreciate the feedback. I mean, I just my experience is if you yell at them and say you're not doing a good job, that's not going to help. But if you say, hey, we appreciate your help, look at all these approvals we got 1,000 happy people we get to call today, we want to thank you for that, then they're more receptive to that. I think
yeah.
it's.
You catch more flies with honey. That's what that
Oh,
is.
100%. No, totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So while we're talking with the ATF, just a question I have regarding traveling with suppressors. Um, because I travel a lot. When I go out of town and I hunt, I like to take a suppressor with me. What is that process supposed to look like that you know of?
Yes. So here's where it gets confusing. There's a form that the ATF has for traveling across state lines, but if you read it very closely, it's only for like a destructive device, short barrel rifle, or machine gun. So it's like an NFA form for crossing state lines, but it does not include silencers. Now, what gets confusing is if you fill it out and send it to them, they'll approve it, but it's not required. So our recommendation is just to make sure that you're not going through a state where they're unlawful. You would want to be in, we're in the Midwest, so you don't want to be in Illinois, or if you're on the East Coast, you want to be in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Rhode Island, and explaining Massachusetts why you have a suppressor if you're not a licensed manufacturer in most cases. So yeah, you don't have to complete any paperwork when you're in the U.S. I don't know how the federal laws carry. Some people say if you're on an interstate, you go through a state that has it, you're protected. And that would make me nervous. I know as a dealer, I carry my paperwork showing I'm a dealer just in case.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I carry my paperwork everywhere I go,
Yeah.
even out in the field. Just as I mean,
Totally.
just so
Some
you
people
have it.
take a picture of it so they have it on their phone. I mean, that's always a good idea. The true, like if you read the statutes, it says you have to be willing to present it in a reasonable period of time. So you don't have to actually have it on you. And a lot of people will argue with you on that, but it says a reasonable period of time. What, who knows what reasonable period of
Yeah.
time
What's
is?
reasonable to them?
Yeah.
Like, is it immediate? I
Yeah.
mean, because
But the interesting thing is it's all covered under tax code. So the only people that technically can ask to see a copy really are an ATF agent, which are different than the industry operations people who do the inspection. So it'd be an agent on the criminal side, and then actually a treasury agent can ask to see it too, because it's managed through the IRS stuff. So, people ask about the game wardens, and, technically you don't have to, show them all the paperwork, but a lot of times I think they're just checking to make sure they aren't stolen. They might run the serial number to make sure that, it's lawfully owned.
right. That's news to me because I actually just yesterday I printed off a copy, put it in my truck.
Yeah.
That way I always, I keep a copy of every suppressor in my truck just in case,
Yeah.
I'm going down the road and all of a sudden, I guess, man, an agent pulls me over and I can show him, but I guess I don't have to show anybody else.
No, and like I said, you can take a picture. We did a deep dive on it because there were some ranges that were requiring it. You couldn't come in unless you proved it. They were getting a little heavy-handed, so some people asked us to research it, and that's how we kind of came up with that.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, now that we know, but I've got to tell a travel story. I'm going to tell it on the other side of this break. But when we come back, we're going to be talking new suppressor from Silencer Central with Brandon Maddox. The Benelli Lupo is the Ferrari of hunting guns. If you look at all the lines, it has all the lines of an Italian fine sports car. And I'm going to tell you this right now. When you're out in the field, I'm going to recommend utilizing a tripod or a bipod. I prefer utilizing a tripod just for the simple fact that it's real versatile. I can shoot, standing, I can shoot kneeling, I can shoot prone. There's not a lot of positions that you can't get in with the modern day tripod that's going to make your hunt better and put that Benelli Lupo on target, because that gun is accurate and it deserves every chance it can get to be as sturdy as you can be. If you do your job, the Benelli Lupo will certainly do its. All right, we're back with Brandon Maddox, Gun Talk Hunters, and I hope you're definitely successful on your hunting season this year. I've been very successful, and I've been traveling more this year than I have in previous years past. And I have been fortunate to be hunting with one of these. This is the new Banish Backcountry. And I'm going to just go ahead and tell you right now, this fits inside an HD, I think it's an HD 90 Liberty safe. So when I'm traveling, I can throw it in there with my carry gun. And it was the coolest thing to be able to just throw. I actually threw 2 cans in there. So what's the Brandon behind the backcountry? What's the story?
The backcountry hunters ask us, hey, could you come up with something that's a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter, and still hearing safe so that we can justify carrying it on a backcountry hunt? And at first I was a little skeptical because the Banish 30 is modular, so you can make it shorter, you can make it 7 inches. So I was kind of like, hey, why don't you just use that? But they kept pushing on me, so went to the engineers and said, hey, is there a way to maybe make the diameter a little bit bigger? It's the standard silencer is typically 1.5 inches. I usually say kind of like a toilet tissue roll. So we
Right.
went to a 1.6, so a little bit, so you could get more volume in there. And then to get the weight down even further, we actually just weld the baffles together. So it's stacked baffles that are kind of welded together. And then, probably for about a year, our engineers did a lot of R&D testing, try, test. And
Yeah.
then that's where we came up with. I mean, it's hearing safe on a 300 ROM. So that's a pretty big beast to tame and make hearing safe. So, I honestly have not shot it yet, but I've kind of been in the middle of conversations with everyone that we've mailed the first ones to shoot. And people are like super excited. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but I was like, it's good to get that positive feedback after
No.
spending a year in R&D. And I mean, it's super light. I mean, I've got one here, and when I picked it up, I was like, Silencer Central Banish, we've always tried to focus on titanium because it's lighter for hunters. It's going to hold up better than aluminum. But when you hold this thing, it's like, there's a wow factor. It's so
Oh,
light.
oh, it's amazing. When it first came in, well, when we first started talking about taking it to Alaska, I was like, man, that's the perfect kind of proving ground for what I look for in a suppressor. And you talk to all these backcountry hunters, and they're like shaving, like half their toothbrush off to cut weight and everything like that. So I see the interest in something like this, but I think this is more for the guys that truly have experience in suppressors and have taken or shot with suppressors in a hunt.
Yeah.
You don't have to have ears. You don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, my kid doesn't have his hearing protection on. I mean, that's where I see this sucker just absolutely nail it, is that you don't have to think about it.
Right. No, totally. I think as we expose people like yourself to it, I realize too that there's a lot of hunters that haven't gotten a suppressor because they're worried about that weight and that extra length on the end. So, even if you say backcountry and they don't hunt backcountry, when they see something that's this light and this short, I mean, 5.5 inches is the length. It's like 7.8 ounces. It's crazy light. So
Yeah. 5.5 inches. So if you want hard data, I've got it here pulled up in front of me. 5.5 inches long, 7.8 ounces. The material is titanium. Like he said, up to 300 rum. That's, man, and it fits everything in between.
totally.
I've shot it on a 270. I've shot it on a 6.5. I've shot it on a 308. So I've been using all those guns and it works beautifully every single time. And it allows great follow-up shots. If you haven't hunted with the suppressor, that's one of the benefits of it, is that if you've got to take a second shot, man, you're going to have a few added seconds, because that non-directional sound, that the animal doesn't understand which way it came from. They know something happened, but I'm telling you, when you can do that, you bring the animal down quick. And I've had a lot of fun with it. And I just found out that I'm going to have to send them back. So I've been crying for the last 2 or 3 days.
I think you got yours like the first batch. So I think they want to sandblast it, give you a fresh new Cerakote, so you have a brand new one that you can play
Man,
with.
this sucker it's already like the edges, because I mean we literally beat the crap out of these. And I think that goes to show, like, this is the first run of it, and man, it still looks great. It's got a little bit of worn finish to it, which I love. I find that appealing. But man, I was crying so bad. I was like, oh man, I might get one more hunt out of it. I'm thinking about it.
So it also has a universal mount. So sometimes
Hmm.
people ask, and if you have other suppressors where you already have mounts, I mean, it's nice because you can, sort of plug and play. So
Yeah. It's a massive deal. And this is the mount style is direct to thread, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Or a muzzle brake, I guess, or
Yeah,
direct
totally.
to
Yeah, we have
thread.
both. Yeah, whichever
Yeah,
one.
you
Yeah.
have both. So
Yep.
kind of walk through that. How does a guy go? So he's in the market for a suppressor. He's like, okay, KJ, Brandon, you guys sold me. How
Yeah.
does he decide what to select?
Far as suppressor
Well, as
or
far
just
as like
mount.
whether he does direct thread.
Yeah. So the direct thread is obviously going to be lighter. So we felt like that was going to be more appealing because you don't have that break that's kind of
Yeah.
fits in there. So basically it's screwing into the base and then the barrel's screwing right onto that. The brake does test a little bit quieter. It's handling some of the blast. Typically you see brakes used more in like an SBR environment where you're worried about a lot of unburnt powder and having a shorter barrel. It kind of protects that first baffle to have that brake on there. Some people like the idea of brakes because you can put it on every gun, but I've always thought, gosh, you end up spending a lot of money putting a brake on every gun, just to be able to kind of have to move it around.
Yeah.
Direct thread's my favorite. If you talk to people who shoot for accuracy, direct thread is always the most accurate. So for hunting, it's typically the most popular because it's lighter, it's more accurate. Years ago, you used to have the that would click or whatever, and you
Yeah.
were worried it might click and stop in a different place than it did last time, and then your scope might not be set completely right, and then your repeatability might not be as good. So typically direct thread's less expensive, it's typically lighter, and it's more accurate. That's what most people prefer.
That's almost every single can that I own. Like, I know my Banish 46 is that way,
Yeah.
my Banish 30 is that way. I like the ability to move guns,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, and I'll keep a log on what guns I've shot with which suppressors. And that helps me stay straight on, okay, the short version of the Banish 30 goes on a Sig Cross. The long
Sure,
version goes on a Smith Victory.
sure.
So that I think that helps me, and that might be a little trick for you guys to use. But yeah, what do you guys got coming up?
Far as like new stuff or events, or I mean, we're about to
Yeah,
get
is
ready
there
for the
anything
busy
that you can
season.
tell
Gosh.
us or
Oh
events?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
well,
events?
gosh, man, and we're starting to get really busy. I mean, we got 4 events this weekend. We typically work a couple hundred shows a year. So, the biggest shows for us coming up as it starts to get a little colder, Dallas Safari Club would be at the first of the year. Then you got Safari Club International. So there's a lot of really big events coming up that we'll be at, obviously. Of course, SHOT Show's coming up. We'll be at Industry Day
Yep.
there. So, yeah, I mean, events are cool because people can see how light that titanium is. You can hand it
Yes.
to them and they say, "Wow, that has a significant benefit to me as a shooter versus putting stainless steel on the end of my, firearm." And then also, as you've seen, they're super quiet. I mean, it's probably got more baffles than a lot of the other manufacturers put in there, which drives up the cost to us. But we feel like it's the right thing to do because it does make it quieter.
Oh, it's super quiet. I do enjoy it. Now you guys ran a shoot on mute
Yeah.
event a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, we're starting a partnership with Federal Ammo, and they like the idea of getting people in the field and shooting, and so do we. So, what we've done is we've started working different events where we'll bring the firearms, we'll bring the suppressors, Federal supplies the ammo to us, and then we let people kind of test before you buy. And, as you probably the first time you shot with suppressor, it's not hard to get hooked immediately once you shoot. So, it's hard to scale that. I mean, but there's certain times of the years in certain regions where it might be hard to reach people because there's not as many events. So it's kind
Yeah.
of working with local businesses to create an event and invite them. And you tell people you have free ammo and you have firearms, you have
Well,
silencers.
that's number one reason to go. I always call it OPA, man. Anytime you can shoot other people's
People
ammo, that's
totally
always good.
100%. Yeah, I keep waiting for a big bill from Federal. They've been great to work with. I even got a text from their CEO to go hunting with him tomorrow. Pheasants here in South Dakota. So hopefully, I know Federal's liking the opportunity to get their name in front of more people, and we like the idea of getting more people with experience with the suppressors. So
Well, I'll tell you, Brandon, you guys at Silencer Central, just keep it up, keep making it easy for people because I think
yeah,
that's one of the barriers to entry on any suppressor. Like if you just get over the cost of it, just go,
yeah,
this is what the price is to save your hearing.
yeah,
Um, you're saving your hearing, you're saving your kids' hearing. You take them out hunting, they're going to enjoy it much more. Probably going to become better shots too. But
totally.
you guys have eliminated like any barrier to entry because I know where I hung up was really the paperwork on it. And
Totally.
you guys have really made that so simple.
The good experience for me working gun shows for like the last 17 years is just getting that real time feedback and understanding from the customer that they wanted a simpler process. And then you mentioned earlier, kind of working with ATF to digitize a lot of the processes that before were, kind of mailing back and forth in paper. We've been able to
Right.
eliminate that. But yeah, our insight really is that's the biggest obstacle is the paperwork for the customer. So by Silencer Central managing all the paperwork and making it very turnkey and then, mailing a suppressor to their front door helps. You mentioned the price, we also let people pay while they wait. So, the secret is
Yeah.
if you call my sales guys, they'll let you stretch that out pretty far. So if you call in and say, "Hey, I've only got $200 today. I'd like to get something started or $100 or whatever," we work with you. It's, our, obviously we just ask that when it's approved that the customer pay for it before we mail it to you. But other than that, yeah, a lot of guys like that idea. There's no interest, there's no fees. We let you pay while you wait. So some guys will call and say, "Hey, if it's going to take 6 months, can I pay over 6 months? Sure, let's do $100 a month or whatever works for you."
That's awesome because yeah, I'm looking on the website and you can either pay now, pay the whole upfront
Totally.
cost, or you can do easy pay,
Yeah.
which is super simple and I mean, there's no interest and it's all free.
Well, yeah, and like I said, I learned that at the shows. The guy's like, "Well, I can't spend that much money without talking to the wife." Well, how much you got in your wallet? Let's put it on the table. Let's do all your paperwork right here. Let's create your trust. We give the
See,
free gun trust away, which people like too. So there's a lot of, sort of perks.
yeah, you make it almost too hard to say no. I mean,
Right.
you've made it easy to say
Trying. Yeah,
yes.
we're trying. We're trying.
Yeah. Well, keep it up, man, and
Yeah.
thanks for being on Gun Talk Hunt.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always an honor to be a part of your show, sir.
All right. Oh my gosh, he called me sir. I must be getting old now.
Well, you know how it is when you're born in the South.
That is true. All right, Gun Talk Hunters, you know the drill. Hey, if you're listening to this, feel free to, hey, go watch it on Facebook and YouTube, because we're showing off the Banish Backcountry from Silencer Central. They've made it easy to enter. You got to go check them out. And that is going to be silencercentral.com. Go give them a look. Review this. Give us an update on what you want to see on the show. We'll get it in there for you. Ring the bell, whatever you got to do, all those good things. But you know the drill. Keep those muzzles pointed in a safe direction and always be on the hunt.